Man, this third season, it was actually better than season two. The reason I said that, guys, is because season two and season three, and even season one, if you watch the ratings on Anime List or other places that rate animes, the third season is higher than both of those. In fact, I think the second season is higher than the first season. And that makes sense. Typically, with animes like this one, the first season kind of sets the characters. The second season gives you a kind of a bigger plot, and then the third season and on builds on that plot. And this was a good build up. You know, we meet our little Retsuko, and she's still trying to figure out adult life. Now, before anything, guys, if you have not done so by now, make sure you do subscribe to my channel. There will be a giveaway happening on September 15th. If it's past that day, which it pretty much could be, then make sure you are subscribed by now, and the video will come out on that day, and if it's already out, then go check it out and get some free merch. Okay, actually I believe it will be out because I'm posting this one later on in the week. So also, guys, you guys can join me on TikTok and Twitter. I'm trying to grow those as bigger as possible, and that's about it. Okay, Retsuko in season 2 essentially had this you know, I guess epiphany of you don't have to fit in the margins of society to be able to be happy, right? And that is having to have a boyfriend, become a fiance, and then get married, because you know she had this horrible relationship with this rich guy, Tarano, and Tarano essentially didn't really care much for her. I mean, he did, but it just wasn't a good, healthy relationship. So they broke up, and essentially, I kind of feel like that's kind of where it starts here. Retsuko is essentially getting over the whole relationship epiphany she had, and now she's addicted to VR dating, and because of that, she is now going into debt. She owes money to bills, and then eventually hits a car, which is Hayudo. Hayudo? I think it's Hayudo. Anyways, it eats a leopard, and essentially he goes out of his way and tells her that she needs to work basically under him so she can pay off her debt, and that ends up working out, and until she finds out that he can't really pay her until the group that he leads, an idol group, becomes famous. And Retsuko then joins in as an accountant and eventually puts her all in trying to make more money for them. And she actually does a really good job. Monica, who is the leader of the idol group, is kind of doesn't really want to let her in, and then she eventually does. I guess let's focus on them first. Essentially, the idol group gets a little bit bigger, but then is not big enough. And Hayudo finds out that Retsuko can actually do heavy metal singing. So he switches the idol group into kind of more of a heavy metal idol group. And he has Retsuko join the idol group, and there's now 4 girls. So there's kind of a drama between Monica and Retsuko, and eventually it turns out all for the good. But there's this whole controversy before I even watched the season. There was a dark episode about Retsuko, and I was wondering which one it was, and eventually I did get to it, and it was she had a stalker. You know, partially I thought it wasn't too dark, but I understand the level of danger that some of these girls go through, especially if you have stalkers. Now, you know, obviously, a lot of these girls eventually have to get security because of these stalkers. And eventually she was chased down by this guy who was stalking her, but not because he liked her, but because he was upset that she changed the style of the idol group, and he was gonna cut her. Like, he literally was gonna cut her. Luckily, her ever so faithful friend Haida was there to save the day, and yeah, that happens. Retsuko eventually leaves the idol group and essentially decides that she is going to continue to do life as an accountant and see what life is gonna show her next. It it's kind of like a pointless part of her life, to be honest. It almost seems like it, other than her getting back into track of who she is. So that's that. Now, besides her, there is another story really centered on Haida, and Haida essentially really likes Retsuko, doesn't know how he should confess to her, but then Inui, a very nice girl to him, she's a dog, I believe, she confesses after a few friendship dates that she likes him and that she wants something more than just what they're having. And Haida essentially, after debating for a long time, chooses to be with Inui for a while. And he gets support from Washimi and from Funeko and other girls that we see in other episodes, as well as Tadano. Tadano at one point also helps them, which is kind of weird because they didn't like each other. But they joined forces because they have a common, I wouldn't say enemy, but a common heartbroken person, that's Retsuko. And, you know, his relationship with Inui is so shaky because even when he was trying to decide, he didn't want to decide for Inui. Like, he was trying to let fate decide, and fate keep choosing Inui, and he's like, no, let's try it again. And you know why? Because he is so infatuated with Retsuko, and he still likes her a lot. So because of that, and because that was kind of obvious, and other events in the season, Haida eventually breaks up with Inui, and I think that's actually also in that episode where he saves Retsuko. Inui essentially understands that Haida would risk his life for Retsuko, and that showed her, at least, that Haida is not just there for friendship with Retsuko. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of other stuff that happens in the side, and it's definitely a comedy still, but it does take a more serious note in this season, and I did appreciate it. I actually did enjoy it. I do see why season 1 didn't do as great as a lot of people wanted it to do, and that's just because it almost seemed like it was taking a formula of maybe sitcom and making it into an anime, and people kept comparing it to The Office and other shows here in the U.S., but season 2 took a different turn, and people then were trying to figure out what Retsuko is as a series. And I think the third season kind of defines it. It's a story about Retsuko finding herself. And when a person tries to find themselves, there's a lot of things that they have to cross. Not just romance, not just problems in the office, not just problems, trying to pay the bills. There's so many aspects of someone's life that even if you are okay in, I guess, a state of your life, something is failing. You might be great in the romance department, but doing horrible in the bill department. You may be doing great already in the business department, but not doing so great in the romance department. So, it just shows that Retsuko is a typical person. So yeah, out of 10, I think it deserves the rating that it got in my anime list, 7.8. I was debating to say 7.5 or 8. I don't think it goes high enough to an 8, because I have a lot of animes at 8, but this one I don't think is as high as 8. I think this one's more 7.5. It is one of those animes that some people would watch it and really not fall in love with the characters too fast, just because there's so much comedy thrown into you in between the episodes. So it doesn't center on one thing, and that's still not a bad thing. But I would say if it was purely drama, I would have enjoyed it, probably given it an 8. Or if it was purely comedy, I probably also would have given it an 8. But because of it too, it kind of didn't do a good mix at some episodes. I'd say 7.8, I think, is what it deserves. So, anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching this. If you haven't done so by now, make sure you subscribe to my channel. Hit that bell button if you guys don't mind, and you'll be notified when I go live and upload videos. Thank you again for your love and support, guys. And like always, don't be strangers. See you guys.